Liam and the Worry Bubble. Liam was a boy with a bright smile and a mop of sandy brown hair that always seemed to be sticking up at odd angles, no matter how hard his mom tried to comb it. He loved building magnificent castles out of blocks, drawing fantastical creatures with rainbow manes, and reading stories about brave knights and clever princesses. But Liam also had a secret that sometimes made his smile disappear and his bright eyes cloud over. Liam had a worry bubble. It wasn't a real bubble, of course. You couldn't see it, but Liam could feel it. It was like a little balloon of anxiety that would float up from inside him, usually when he was thinking about something new or something he wasn't sure about. Sometimes it was small, like a tiny, shimmering soap bubble. Other times it was huge, big enough to fill his whole chest and make it hard to breathe. The worry bubble first appeared when Liam was starting kindergarten. He'd never been away from his mom for so long, and he worried about making friends, about finding the bathroom, and about whether he'd remember how to tie his shoelaces. The worry bubble grew bigger and bigger until he felt like he might burst. Over time, Liam learned to manage the worry bubble a little. He knew that talking to his mom or dad helped. They would listen patiently and remind him that everyone felt worried sometimes and that usually things turned out much better than he expected. He also learned that taking deep breaths, like blowing up an invisible balloon, could make the worry bubble shrink. But the worry bubble never completely went away. It would pop up at unexpected times, whispering little what-if questions in his ear. What if he couldn't finish his drawing? What if his block castle collapsed? What if his best friend, Maya, didn't want to play with him anymore? One sunny afternoon, Liam's teacher, Mrs. Sunshine, her name was actually Mrs. Peterson, but Liam thought Sunshine suited her much better, announced that the class would be putting on a play. It was a play about a brave little squirrel who had to overcome his fear of heights to save his family's acorn stash from a hungry crow. Liam loved plays. He loved watching them, and he secretly dreamed of being on stage himself, pretending to be someone else. But as soon as Mrs. Sunshine said they would be assigning parts, Liam's worry bubble began to inflate. What if I don't get a part, he thought. What if I get a part, but I forget my lines? What if everyone laughs at me? The worry bubble grew so big that it felt like it was pressing against his throat, making it hard to swallow. He felt his palms getting sweaty, and his stomach did a little flip-flop. When it was time to sign up for the roles, Liam hesitated. He looked at the list, his eyes darting between the different characters: the brave squirrel, the hungry crow, the wise old owl, and the squirrel family. He wanted to be the brave squirrel more than anything, but his worry bubble was whispering so loudly that he couldn't even bring himself to write his name down. Instead, he just stood there, clutching his pencil, his heart pounding in his chest. Mrs. Sunshine noticed him and smiled kindly. "Liam, is everything all right? Would you like to sign up for a part?" Liam shook his head miserably. I don't know if I can," he mumbled. Mrs. Sunshine gently led him to a quiet corner of the classroom. "Liam, what's troubling you? You seem a little worried." Liam took a deep breath and confessed about the worry bubble. He told her how it made him feel scared and unsure of himself, and how it was stopping him from trying new things. Mrs. Sunshine listened patiently, her eyes full of understanding. When he was finished, she smiled warmly. "Liam, everyone has a worry bubble sometimes. Even me," she confided. "The important thing is to learn how to manage it. You can't get rid of it completely, but you can learn how to make it smaller and how to stop it from controlling you." She then shared a secret with Liam. "When I feel worried, I imagine my worry as a little cloud. I picture it floating away in the sky." Mrs. Sunshine then taught Liam a new technique. "Imagine your worry bubble is a real bubble," she said. "And imagine you have a little pin. Every time a what-if thought pops into your head, gently pop the bubble with the pin. Then replace that what-if with a what if it goes well thought." They practiced together. "What if I forget my lines?" Liam said, his voice trembling slightly. "Pop." Mrs. Sunshine pretended to pop an imaginary bubble. "What if you remember your lines perfectly and everyone admires your performance? What if the costume doesn't fit me?" "Pop." "What if the costume fits you perfectly and you look amazing on stage? What if I'm not good enough?" "Pop." "What if you're amazing and everyone is so proud of you?" Liam practiced popping his imaginary worry bubble for a few minutes. He started to feel a little bit better. The worry bubble was still there, but it seemed a little smaller, a little less overwhelming. That afternoon, when Liam was playing in his room, his mom came in to check on him. She noticed he was unusually quiet, not building his usual towering castles or drawing his rainbow creatures. "Liam, honey, is everything okay?" she asked, sitting beside him on the floor. Liam hesitated, then told his mom about the play and about his worry bubble. He explained what Mrs. Sunshine had taught him about popping the what-if bubbles and replacing them with positive thoughts. His mom smiled and gave him a big hug. "That's a wonderful technique, Liam," she said. "And you know what? I'm so proud of you for even considering being in the play. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you're scared, but you do it anyway." That night, as Liam lay in bed, the worry bubble started to inflate again. He thought about the play, about the stage, about all the people who would be watching him. "What if I mess up?" he thought. Pop. Liam imagined popping the bubble with his imaginary pin. "What if I do a great job and make everyone happy?" He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, remembering Mrs. Sunshine's cloud trick, exhaling slowly. He repeated the exercise several times, popping each what if bubble and replacing it with a positive thought. Slowly, the worry bubble began to shrink. The next day at school, Liam walked up to the sign-up sheet and wrote his name beside the role of the brave squirrel. He felt a little nervous, but he also felt a sense of excitement and determination. He knew the worry bubble might pop up again, but he also knew he had the tools to manage it. The rehearsals were challenging. Liam sometimes stumbled over his lines, and he felt a little awkward pretending to be a squirrel. But he practiced every day, and with each rehearsal, he felt his confidence growing. He imagined popping the worry bubble whenever it tried to creep in, replacing the negative thoughts with positive ones. Finally, the day of the play arrived. Liam felt a flutter of butterflies in his stomach, but this time it wasn't just the worry bubble. There was also a feeling of anticipation and excitement. As he stood backstage, waiting for his cue, he took a deep breath and imagined popping any stray what-if bubbles. When it was his turn, Liam stepped onto the stage. The bright lights shone in his eyes, and he could see the faces of all the people in the audience: his mom, his dad, his grandma, Maya, and all his classmates. He took another deep breath and began to speak. At first, his voice was a little shaky, but as he got into the role, his confidence grew. He remembered his lines, he moved with energy and enthusiasm, and he even managed to make the audience laugh at some of the squirrel's funny antics. He wasn't perfect. He forgot a line once, but he quickly recovered and kept going. He didn't let the fear of messing up stop him from enjoying the moment. When the play was over, the audience erupted in applause. Liam felt a warm glow of pride and accomplishment. He had done it. He had faced his fear, overcome his worry bubble, and put on a great show. Backstage, his mom and dad gave him huge hugs. Maya told him he was the best brave squirrel she had ever seen. And Mrs. Sunshine smiled at him, her eyes sparkling with pride. That night, as Liam snuggled into bed, he felt a sense of calm and contentment. The worry bubble was still there, but it was tiny, barely noticeable. He knew it would probably come back again someday, but he also knew that he had the power to manage it. He had learned that even though it's okay to be scared, he could still be brave. Liam drifted off to sleep, dreaming of brave squirrels, rainbow creatures, and magnificent castles, knowing that even with a little worry bubble, he could do anything he set his mind to. The day courage got lost. Barnaby Button was a boy who loved collecting buttons. Not just any buttons, mind you. Barnaby collected special buttons. He had a shiny brass button from his grandfather's old sailor coat, a pearly button from his mother's favorite dress, and even a tiny, sparkly button that had fallen off a fairy's wing, or so he liked to believe. But Barnaby's most prized possession was a button made of pure, shimmering silver. This wasn't just any silver button. This button, according to his grandmother, was the button of courage. "Keep it close, Barnaby," she had told him. "Whenever you feel scared or unsure, hold it tight. It will remind you that you are braver than you think." Barnaby treasured the button of courage. He kept it in a velvet pouch in his pocket, and he would often hold it when he felt nervous, like on the first day of school or when he had to give a presentation in class. The button, he believed, gave him the strength to face his fears. One sunny afternoon, Barnaby was playing in Whispering Woods, a rambling, slightly mysterious forest bordering his town. He was pretending to be a brave knight, Sir Barnaby the Bold, on a quest to rescue a princess from a grumpy dragon. He swung his stick sword with gusto, dodging imaginary fireballs and leaping over pretend chasms. As he was battling a particularly fearsome and entirely imagined three-headed griffin, he reached into his pocket to steady himself. But the velvet pouch was gone. Barnaby's heart plummeted faster than a dragon dive-bombing its prey. The button of courage. Lost? He frantically searched his pockets again, then his entire imaginary knight's outfit. He retraced his steps, poking his stick sword into every pile of leaves and peering under every mushroom cap. The button of courage was nowhere to be found. A tear trickled down Barnaby's cheek. He felt a wave of panic wash over him, stronger than any dragon's breath. He was lost without his courage button. How would he ever be brave again? He sat down on a mossy log, feeling utterly defeated. The Whispering Woods suddenly seemed a lot less friendly and a lot more whispery. The shadows deepened and the rustling leaves sounded like spooky secrets. He imagined all sorts of scary creatures lurking behind the trees, grumpy goblins, mischievous sprites, and maybe even the real dragon he was supposed to be fighting. Barnaby knew he had to find the button. Without it, he felt like he was no longer Sir Barnaby the Bold, but just Barnaby the Scaredy Pants. He stood up, his legs trembling slightly. "Okay, Barnaby," he said to himself, "you have to be brave, even without the button. Grandma always said the button only reminded you of your courage, it didn't give it to you." He took a deep breath and started searching again, this time with a renewed determination. He called out, "Button, Button, where are you?" His voice echoed through the trees. As he searched, he noticed something he hadn't seen before. A tiny, almost invisible path snaked through the undergrowth. It was so small it looked like only rabbits and squirrels used it. Barnaby hesitated. Should he follow it? It looked a little adventurous. Without his courage button, adventure felt a lot like trouble. But then he remembered the princess he was supposed to be rescuing. She wouldn't rescue herself, would she? With another deep breath, Barnaby stepped onto the tiny path. The path led him deeper and deeper into the woods. The trees grew taller and thicker, and the air grew cooler and damper. Strange flowers bloomed in hidden glades, their petals glowing with an eerie light. Barnaby felt a shiver run down his spine. He was definitely lost now. Suddenly, he heard a faint sound. A tiny whimper. He followed the sound, pushing through a thick curtain of vines, and found himself in a small clearing. In the center of the clearing sat a very small, very fluffy, and very lost kitten. The kitten was huddled beneath a fern, its fur matted and its eyes wide with fear. It looked even more scared than Barnaby felt. Barnaby's heart melted. He forgot all about his missing button and his own fears. He gently approached the kitten, speaking in a soft voice. "Hello, little one," he said. "Are you lost?" The kitten looked up at him, its whimper turning into a weak meow. It was clear that the kitten was not only lost but also hungry and cold. Barnaby knew he had to help. He couldn't just leave the kitten alone in the woods. But how? He didn't have any food and he didn't know the way back home. He felt a familiar wave of panic creeping in. But then he looked at the frightened little kitten and he knew he couldn't give up. He remembered his grandfather's old sailor coat. He had a small, hidden pocket inside it, perfect for carrying small treasures. The same pocket where the brass button came. Gently, he picked up the kitten and carefully tucked it inside his jacket, close to his chest. The kitten snuggled against him, its purrs vibrating softly against his ribs. Now, Barnaby has another problem. He was now even more lost. But he knew that he couldn't give up. He had to find his way out of the woods for himself and for the little kitten. He started walking, choosing a direction that seemed to lead uphill. He reasoned that if he could climb to the top of a hill, he might be able to see something familiar. The climb was long and difficult. The path was steep and rocky, and Barnaby stumbled several times. But he kept going, driven by the warmth of the kitten nestled in his jacket and by the determination to get them both to safety. As he climbed, he started to notice things again. The sound of birds singing in the trees, the smell of pine needles under his feet, the way the sunlight dappled through the leaves. The woods didn't seem so scary anymore. They were just woods. Finally, he reached the top of the hill. He looked around, his heart pounding with hope. And then he saw it. In the distance, he could see the familiar rooftops of his town. He knew the way home. He carefully made his way down the hill, the kitten still snug in his jacket. As he reached the edge of the woods, he saw his mother standing there, her face etched with worry. "Barnaby," she cried, running towards him. "Oh, Barnaby, I was so worried." Barnaby ran to her and hugged her tightly. "I'm okay, Mom," he said. "I got a little lost, but I found a friend." He carefully opened his jacket and showed her the kitten. His mother gasped, "Oh, the poor thing. Where did you find it?" Barnaby explained about finding the kitten in the woods and how he had to rescue it. His mother smiled. "You were very brave, Barnaby," she said. "Very brave indeed." As they walked home, Barnaby realized something. He hadn't thought about the button of courage once since he found the kitten. He had been so focused on helping the little creature that he had forgotten all about his own fears. When they got home, his mother gave the kitten some food and water and it gobbled it down eagerly. They decided to name her Luna because her eyes were as bright as the moon. Later that evening, as Barnaby was getting ready for bed, he suddenly remembered the button of courage. He searched his pockets one last time, but it was still gone. He felt a pang of sadness, but it wasn't as strong as he expected. He had faced his fears in the woods and he had rescued a lost kitten. He had been brave even without the button. Just as he was about to climb into bed, he noticed something lying on his pillow. It was the velvet pouch. He opened it up and inside, shimmering in the moonlight, was the button of courage. He picked it up and held it in his hand. The button felt warm and familiar, but it didn't feel quite as necessary as it used to. He smiled. He understood now. The button of courage wasn't magic. It was just a reminder. The real courage had always been inside him, waiting to be discovered. And he had discovered it not by holding a button, but by helping someone else. Before he drifted off to sleep, Barnaby whispered, "Thank you, courage," to the small silver button in his hand. Then he looked at Luna, curled up at the foot of his bed. He knew that tomorrow he would be ready for a whole new adventure, with or without a button. Because now he knew that being brave wasn't about not being scared, it was about doing what was right, even when you were. And that was a kind of courage that no one could ever lose. Nina and the cloud shoes. Nina loved running. She loved the feel of the wind in her hair, the thump, thump, thump of her sneakers on the pavement, and the way her legs felt strong and powerful. But sometimes running felt hard. Her feet would ache, her legs would get tired, and she'd have to stop and catch her breath. One sunny afternoon, while exploring the dusty attic of her grandmother's old house, Nina stumbled upon a peculiar trunk tucked away in a shadowy corner. It was made of dark, gnarled wood, and the brass latch was tarnished with age. Curiosity bubbling inside her, she heaved the heavy lid open. Inside, nestled amongst moth-eaten scarves and faded photographs, was a pair of shoes unlike anything Nina had ever seen. They weren't made of leather or canvas, but of a soft, shimmering, pearly white material that seemed to glow from within. They were shaped like little fluffy clouds, and tiny silver threads were woven through them, sparkling like raindrops in the sunlight. Cautiously, Nina reached out and touched one of the shoes. It felt incredibly light, almost weightless, like holding a piece of the sky. An old, handwritten note lay beside the shoes. It read, "To the runner who dreams of soaring, these cloud shoes will lighten your stride and lift your spirit. Wear them with joy and let your feet dance among the clouds." Nina's eyes widened. Cloud shoes? Soaring? It sounded like a dream. Hesitantly, she slipped off her sneakers and put on the cloud shoes. They fit perfectly, as if they were made just for her. As soon as her feet were inside, she felt a strange tingling sensation, a lightness that seemed to lift her from the inside out. She walked around the attic, testing them out. Each step felt like bouncing on a trampoline. She even tried a little jump, and to her astonishment, she floated a little higher than she expected, landing softly and silently. "Wow," she whispered, her heart pounding with excitement. She knew she had to try them out for real. Carefully, Nina carried the cloud shoes back downstairs and out into the garden. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. She took a deep breath, feeling the cool evening air fill her lungs. This was it. With a mix of anticipation and nervousness, Nina started to run. First, it felt a little strange. The cloud shoes were so light that she almost felt like she was running on air. But as she picked up speed, something magical happened. Her feet barely touched the ground. She felt like she was floating, gliding, soaring above the earth. The effort of running seemed to vanish. She ran faster and faster, laughing with delight. The wind whipped through her hair as she practically flew across the lawn. The world around her blurred into a beautiful, vibrant tapestry of colors. She ran past the flower beds, past the old oak tree, and out onto the quiet country road that led away from her grandmother's house. The cloud shoes didn't tire her. They didn't ache. They just kept carrying her, lighter and faster than she had ever run before. As she ran, she noticed something else. The sky above her seemed to open up, revealing swirling patterns of stars that she had never seen before. The moon shone brighter, casting a silvery glow on the fields and forests around her. The world felt alive, magical, and full of possibilities. She ran for what felt like hours, exploring the countryside under the starlit sky. She discovered hidden meadows bathed in moonlight, babbling brooks whispering secrets to the night, and ancient trees standing guard like silent sentinels. With the cloud shoes, she felt like she could run forever. But as the first hint of dawn began to paint the eastern sky, Nina knew she had to go back. She turned and ran towards her grandmother's house, her heart filled with joy and wonder. When she reached the garden, she carefully took off the cloud shoes, feeling the magic slowly fade. She carried them back to the attic, placing them gently back in the trunk. Back in her own sneakers, the world felt different. Running was no longer weightless and effortless. She felt the familiar pull of gravity, the slight ache in her legs. But she also felt something new, a sense of confidence and determination that she hadn't had before. She ran her usual morning route, pushing herself a little harder, remembering the feeling of freedom and lightness she had experienced in the cloud shoes. Even without their magic, she felt stronger, faster, and more determined than ever. The next day, Nina couldn't wait to wear the cloud shoes again, but when she opened the trunk, she found them gone. In their place was another note, written in the same elegant script as before. The cloud shoes are not meant to be worn every day. They are a gift, a reminder that anything is possible when you believe in yourself. Remember the feeling of soaring, the lightness of your spirit, and let that guide you in all that you do. The shoes will return when you truly need them, when your spirit needs to be lifted once more. Nina understood. The cloud shoes weren't just about running fast. They were about believing in herself, about pushing her limits, and about finding the magic in the everyday. She realized that she didn't need the shoes to feel light and free. She could find that feeling within herself. Over the next few weeks, Nina practiced. She ran every day, pushing herself harder and harder. She visualized herself soaring through the clouds, letting the feeling of lightness and freedom guide her steps. Slowly but surely, she improved. She ran faster, longer, and with more confidence than ever before. One day, during a school track meet, Nina was feeling nervous. She had never competed before, and she was up against some of the fastest runners in the county. As she stood at the starting line, her legs felt like lead, and her stomach was churning with anxiety. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, remembering the feeling of running in the cloud shoes. She imagined the lightness, the freedom, the feeling of soaring above the ground. She pictured herself running faster than she ever had before. When the starting gun fired, Nina took off like a shot. She ran with all her heart and soul, pushing beyond her limits. She felt the wind in her hair, the thump, thump, thump of her feet on the track, and the burning sensation in her legs. But she didn't give up. She kept running, fueled by the memory of the cloud shoes and the belief in herself. And then, something amazing happened. As she rounded the final turn, she felt a surge of energy, a feeling of lightness and freedom that she hadn't felt since she wore the cloud shoes. She felt like she was flying. With a final burst of speed, Nina crossed the finish line, collapsing onto the grass, breathless but exhilarated. She had won. Her teammates rushed over to congratulate her, cheering and clapping. Nina couldn't believe it. She had actually won. Later that night, back at her grandmother's house, Nina went up to the attic. The trunk was open, and there, nestled amongst the scarves and photographs, were the cloud shoes. They shimmered and glowed, as if they knew she had needed them, and that she had found the magic within herself all along. Nina smiled. She knew she didn't need to wear the cloud shoes to feel like she could soar. She had learned that the real magic was inside her, waiting to be unleashed. She closed the trunk and went downstairs, feeling grateful for the gift of the cloud shoes and the important lesson they had taught her. She knew that no matter what challenges she faced, she could always find the strength and courage to overcome them, as long as she believed in herself and remembered the feeling of soaring. And as she drifted off to sleep that night, she dreamed of running among the clouds, her heart filled with joy and wonder. Now close your eyes, little one, and imagine yourself with your own pair of cloud shoes. What adventures will you have? What dreams will you chase? Remember, the magic is always there, inside you, waiting to be discovered. Sweet dreams. The moon who lost its glow. Once upon a time, nestled high above the earth in a velvet blanket of night, lived a friendly moon named Luna. Luna wasn't just any moon. She wasn't made of the same stuff as most moons, which were grumpy rocks. Luna was extra special. She was crafted from captured starlight and giggling dust motes, and she possessed the most radiant, comforting glow in the entire cosmos. Every night, Luna would eagerly peek over the horizon, her silvery light bathing the world in a soft, gentle embrace. She watched over sleepy towns, whispered secrets to rustling leaves, and guided lost sailors across the sparkling oceans. Little children looked up at her with wonder, dreaming sweet dreams under her watchful eye. Even the grumpy old owls felt a little bit warmer under her light. Luna loved her job. She loved making the world a brighter, happier place even when the sun was away. She also loved making funny faces to the earth for the animals and to the little kids. But one night, something strange began happening. As Luna prepared to shine her usual light, she felt a strange tickle deep inside. It wasn't a fun tickle like when little stardust sprites danced within her. This tickle felt empty. She tried to shine, but only a weak, flickering light emerged. Her usually brilliant glow had dimmed. Panic fluttered through Luna like a frightened bird. "Oh dear, what's happening to me?" she whispered, her voice sounding strangely faint. She tried harder, summoning all her starlight and giggling dust motes, but the light only flickered more erratically. It was like trying to light a damp sparkler. "I'm losing my glow," she cried, her voice a small, worried tremor in the vastness of space. Down on Earth, things were changing too. The playful shadows that normally danced in the moonlight were growing dull and lifeless. The fireflies seemed to blink a little slower, and the night-blooming jasmine didn't smell quite as sweet. Little Lily, who usually loved to look at the moon before bed, pointed upwards and said, "Mommy, the moon looks sad." The animals noticed it too. A wise old owl, perched on a branch, hooted with concern. "The moon's light is fading. Something is terribly wrong." Luna, hearing the owl's worried hoot, felt even worse. Her glow was important to everyone, and she was letting them all down. Guilt tugged at her, heavier than any asteroid. "I must find out what's wrong," she whispered to herself, even as her light continued to fade. But how could she, a moon tethered to her orbit, go searching for answers? Just then, a tiny, sparkling creature zipped past. It was Comet, a small, mischievous comet known for his boundless energy and love of adventures. "Comet," Luna called out, her voice weak but hopeful. Comet skidded to a halt, his tail of icy dust swirling around him like a shimmering scarf. "Luna, you look pale. What's wrong?" "I'm losing my glow," Luna cried, her voice filled with despair. "I don't know why, but my light is fading and I don't know what to do." Comet, despite his playful nature, was a loyal friend. He zipped around Luna a few times, trying to diagnose the problem with his sparkly nose. Fading glow, that's not good. But don't worry, Luna, I'll help you. I'm the fastest thing in the solar system. I can travel anywhere. Could you find out what's happening to me?" Luna pleaded. "Perhaps there's something blocking my light or something draining my energy." "Of course, Luna. I'm on it," Comet declared, puffing out his chest. "I'll search the entire cosmos if I have to. Just hold on." And with a flash of his tail, he was gone, streaking across the night sky like a shooting star. Luna watched him go, a tiny spark of hope flickering within her dimmed light. She knew Comet was fast and brave, but the cosmos was a vast and mysterious place. What if he got lost? What if he couldn't find the answer in time? Back on Earth, little Lily couldn't sleep. She was too worried about the moon. She grabbed her favorite teddy bear, Mr. Snuggles, and tiptoed to the window. "Don't worry, Moon," she whispered, gazing up at the dim, pale disk. "We're thinking of you." Lily's mom came into the room, sensing her daughter's unease. She sat beside Lily and wrapped her arms around her. "Sometimes, Lilybug," she said softly, "even the things that shine brightest need a little help. But that doesn't mean they're gone forever. Sometimes all they need is a little rest or a little love." Meanwhile, Comet was zooming through the cosmos, his tail trailing behind him like a shimmering banner. He asked everyone he met, wise old constellations, twinkling stars, even grumpy asteroids, if they knew anything about Luna's fading glow. But no one had an answer. He searched far and wide, past swirling nebulas and through asteroid fields, his energy slowly waning. He was starting to feel discouraged. Maybe Luna's glow was gone forever. He was about to turn back when he noticed something strange. In a dark, forgotten corner of the cosmos, hidden behind a cloud of cosmic dust, was a little planet. But it wasn't just any planet. This planet was completely covered in sadness. The sadness was a thick, gray fog that swirled around the planet, suffocating everything in its path. Comet flew closer, and he could feel the sadness weighing him down, making him feel tired and gloomy. He saw little creatures on the planet, huddled together in the gloom, their faces filled with despair. They were whispering to each other, saying that no one cared about them. As he got closer, Comet realized that the sadness wasn't just on the planet. It was reaching out like invisible tendrils and draining the light and energy from everything around it. And one of those tendrils was reaching all the way to Luna. "That's it," Comet exclaimed. "That planet is stealing Luna's glow." He knew he had to do something, but what could he do against so much sadness? He was just a small comet. But then he remembered what Lily's mom had said, sometimes all they need is a little love. Comet knew that the beings on the planet felt that no one cared about them. That was the root cause of their sadness. He decided to send them a message. He took a deep breath and, with all his might, shot a beam of pure, joyful energy towards the planet. It wasn't much, but it was the best he could do. The beam of joyful energy struck the planet like a tiny spark in the darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the gray fog of sadness began to dissipate, revealing patches of green and blue underneath. The little creatures on the planet looked up, their eyes widening in surprise. They felt something warm and comforting, something they hadn't felt in a long time. Hope began to blossom in their hearts. As the sadness on the planet diminished, the tendril that was draining Luna's glow began to weaken. And as the tendril weakened, Luna felt a surge of energy flow back into her. Her starlight began to shimmer and her giggling dust motes began to dance. Her glow started to return. Back on Earth, Lily gasped with delight. "Mommy, look! The moon is getting brighter." Lily's mom smiled. "See, Lilybug? I told you she just needed a little love." Comet, exhausted but happy, zipped back to Luna. "Luna, I found it," he cried. "There's a planet covered in sadness and it was draining your glow. But I sent them a little bit of joy and it's working. Your light is coming back." Luna, now shining brighter than ever, smiled gratefully at Comet. "You did it, Comet. You saved me. You saved everyone." She then focused her radiant light on the planet of sadness, sending it waves of warmth and comfort. The beings on the planet felt the love and began to open their hearts to each other. Slowly but surely, the planet of sadness began to transform into a planet of hope. From that day on, Luna continued to shine her gentle light on the world, but she also made sure to send a little extra light to the planet of hope, reminding them that they were loved and cared for. And Comet, the brave and loyal Comet, continued to zoom through the cosmos, spreading joy and helping those in need, always ready for a new adventure. And little Lily, every night before bed, would look up at the moon and smile, knowing that even the things that shine brightest sometimes need a little help and that even the smallest act of kindness can make a big difference in the universe. And so the moon continued to shine brightly. Never again did it lose its glow. The planet of sadness was no more, instead it became the planet of hope, always shining brightly. The end. Sleep tight. Willa and the Whispering Wand. Willa Willowbrook was no ordinary girl. She lived in a little cottage nestled at the edge of the Whispering Woods, a place where sunlight dappled through emerald leaves and secrets hummed on the breeze. Willa wasn't a princess or a fairy or even exceptionally brave, at least not yet. She was just a girl who loved to explore, and she had a peculiar habit of talking to the trees. One sunny afternoon, while venturing deeper into the Whispering Woods than she usually dared, Willa tripped over a gnarled root. She tumbled into a patch of soft moss, giggling as she righted herself. That's when she saw it. Nestled among the moss and fallen leaves lay a wand. It wasn't made of smooth, polished wood like the wands in fairy tales. This wand was crafted from a piece of twisted, dark oak, its surface etched with swirling patterns that seemed to writhe and change in the light. A single, iridescent feather was bound to the top with a vine of ivy. Willa reached out, her fingers trembling slightly. As soon as she touched the wand, a tiny voice, like the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze, whispered in her ear. "Hello?" It breathed. Willa gasped, dropping the wand as if it were a hot potato. She looked around wildly, her heart hammering in her chest. She was alone. Or so she thought. She picked up the wand again, her curiosity battling her fear. "Hello?" she whispered back. "Closer." The voice murmured. "Hold me closer." Willa clutched the wand tightly. Sure enough, the voice grew clearer. It was coming from the wand. Who are you?" Willa stammered. "I am Willow," the voice replied. "And I am lonely." Willa, who knew a thing or two about loneliness, her best friend, Thomas, had moved away last spring, felt a pang of sympathy. "Willow? You're the wand." "I am more than just a wand," Willow whispered. "I am a keeper of stories, a weaver of dreams, a friend. But I have been lost for a very long time, and my magic, it's fading." Willa's eyes widened. A talking wand. A magic wand. This was more exciting than any adventure she'd ever imagined. "But what kind of magic?" she asked breathlessly. "The kind that mends broken hearts, that helps lost creatures find their way home, that whispers happiness into the world," Willow replied, her voice growing fainter. "But I need your help, Willa. My magic is tied to the Whispering Woods, and the woods are unwell." Willa frowned. She hadn't noticed anything wrong. The woods always seemed beautiful and vibrant to her. "Unwell? What do you mean?" "The Whispering Woods are losing their whispers," Willow explained sadly. "The streams are less merry, the flowers less bright, the animals less joyful. A shadow is creeping over the land and it's draining the magic away. I need you to help me find the source of the shadow and restore the balance." Willow felt a surge of determination. She couldn't let the Whispering Woods lose their magic. "I'll do it," she declared. "I'll help you, Willow." "But how?" "First," Willow whispered, "you must listen. Listen to the woods. They will guide you. And second, you must trust your heart. Your heart knows the way." Willow then told Willow a few spells and what to say to use them, but before Willow could show her how to use them, a hawk flew down and grabbed Willow and flew away. Willow, without a second thought, chased after the hawk. She ran and ran and ran through the woods. She called out for Willow, and as she was giving up hope of ever finding the hawk or Willow again, she heard Willow calling for help. Willow followed the sound until she found herself at the base of a ginormous tree, taller than she had ever seen before. At the base of the tree was a small hole, just big enough for Willow to crawl through. Willow crawled through and found herself in a large open room. A room that was filled with stolen shiny objects, jewelry, coins, keys, and so much more. Willow stepped into the room and suddenly the hawk flew down from the rafters and landed in front of her. Well, what do we have here?" "A tiny human stumbling into my lair." "How did you find this place, little girl?" the hawk said. "I am here for Willow, give her back," Willow demanded. The hawk laughed. "Willow? You mean this old twig? What's so special about her?" Willow stepped in front of the hawk and crossed her arms. "She is my friend and she needs my help. She is more magical than you can ever dream of being." The hawk smirked. "Magical? Oh, I know all about her magic. That's why I snatched her up, so I could suck all the magic out of her and keep it for myself. But I have been having some trouble getting to her magic. Maybe you can help me." Willow stepped back, but then she realized that she needed to get Willow back safe. To do that, she needed to stall the hawk. "Maybe I can, but I need to know why you were stealing all these shiny objects." The hawk fluffed up its feathers. "I am a collector of the finest objects from around the world. This is my treasure trove and I will not let you take anything from here." "But why do you need treasure? Why steal it from others?" Willow asked. The hawk looked down. "Long ago, I was a prized pet to a king. I had everything I ever dreamed of. I was the most important thing in his life. But one day the king got married and his wife didn't like me. She forced the king to set me free. I was devastated. I lost everything. So I decided that I needed to get it all back plus more. Shiny objects will bring me the happiness I once had. But all this treasure is making you miserable. It's making the woods miserable as well. The woods know you have taken all this treasure. That is why the woods are sick. That is the shadow that Willow was talking about," Willow said in a calm voice. The hawk looked around at the treasure and then at Willow. "Maybe you are right. What good is all this treasure if I am all alone?" "That's right, we can be friends and we can return all this treasure," Willow said with a smile. "But how will I ever be happy again? I lost it all so long ago," the hawk said sadly. Willow walked over to the hawk and gave her a hug. "You are not alone anymore and we will find your happiness. We will return all this treasure to its rightful owners and you will see that is where your happiness will come from." The hawk smiled and suddenly Willow saw Willow fall to the floor. She ran over to her and picked her up. "Willow, are you okay?" "Yes, my dear, I am now. With the hawk willing to let me go, my magic can heal once again. Thank you for saving me," Willow said. "Of course, now what do we do with all this treasure?" Willow asked. "First, the hawk needs a name. We can't keep calling her Hawk," Willow said with a chuckle. "I have always liked the name Goldie," the hawk said. "Perfect, now Goldie, we need to return the treasure," Willow said. With that, Willow and Goldie spent the next few days finding the rightful owners of each item in Goldie's treasure trove. They returned jewelry, coins, keys, and so much more. Each time they returned an item, Goldie began to smile brighter and brighter. Willow could tell that she was finally finding happiness. Finally, all the treasure was returned. The Whispering Woods began to heal and come back to life. The flowers were brighter and more colorful, the streams were happier, and the animals were joyful. "You did it," Willow whispered to Willow. "You saved the Whispering Woods." Willow smiled. "We did it, Willow. And we made a new friend." Goldie hopped onto Willow's shoulder. "The happiest friend I could ever ask for." With the Whispering Woods restored and a new friendship blossoming, Willow knew that her adventures with Willow and Goldie were just beginning. She learned that even the smallest girl could make a big difference and that the greatest magic of all was the magic of kindness, friendship, and a listening heart. That night, as Willow lay in her bed, the moonlight streaming through her window, Willow whispered, "Thank you, Willow, for everything." Willow smiled in her sleep. She knew that as long as she had Willow, Goldie, and her own kind heart, she could face any shadow, overcome any challenge, and bring a little bit of happiness to the world, one whisper at a time. And as she drifted off to sleep, she could have sworn she heard the trees of the whispering woods whispering her name, a gentle lullaby carried on the breeze. Now close your eyes, just like Willa, and let the whispers of the whispering woods carry you off to dreamland. Good night. Freddy the Frog finds a friend. Freddy the Frog was, to put it kindly, a bit of a loner. He lived in a cozy, lily-pad-lined corner of Sunny Meadow Pond, a place bursting with life. Dragonflies zipped and zoomed, water striders skated across the surface, and other frogs croaked and splashed with endless energy. But Freddy preferred his own company. He wasn't necessarily unhappy, just reserved. He loved to watch the sunrise paint the water in shimmering pinks and oranges. He enjoyed catching plump, juicy flies with a flick of his incredibly long tongue. He even found a certain peace in the rhythmic lullaby of the pond, the gentle ripple of water against the reeds. But he did all of this alone. The other frogs, a boisterous bunch, often tried to include him. "Hey, Freddy, come join our splash contest," they'd yell, sending sprays of water high into the air. Or, "Freddy, want to race to the big rock?" But Freddy would usually just shake his head, muttering something about needing to practice his lily pad balancing or being busy observing a particularly interesting beetle. The truth was, Freddy wasn't very good at splashing contests. He always lost. And he was a terrible racer, slow and easily distracted by shiny pebbles. He worried that if he joined in, the other frogs would laugh at him. So he stayed on his lily pad, feeling a little pang of sadness flutter in his chest like a trapped butterfly. One day, a storm came to Sunny Meadow Pond. The sky turned a bruised purple and the wind howled, whipping the water into a frenzy. Rain lashed down, turning the pond into a swirling, chaotic mess. Freddy clung tightly to his lily pad, his big, green eyes wide with fear. He had never seen a storm this fierce. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind tore his lily pad free from its moorings. Freddy gasped as he was swept away, tumbling through the churning water. He tried to swim towards the shore, but the current was too strong. He was tossed and spun, feeling utterly helpless. Just when he thought he couldn't hold on any longer, he bumped into something soft and furry. He looked up and saw a small, brown creature clinging to a piece of driftwood. It was Millie, a field mouse who lived near the pond. Millie was terrified, her whiskers twitching nervously, her tiny paws gripping the wood with all her might. "Are you okay?" Freddy croaked, his voice barely audible above the roar of the storm. Millie squeaked in response, her eyes wide with fear. I don't like the water," she chattered, her voice trembling. "I can't swim." Freddy, despite his own fear, felt a surge of compassion. He might not be a great splash contestant, but he could swim. He had been swimming since he was a tiny tadpole. "Hold on tight," he shouted to Millie, and then, using all his strength, he began to swim towards the nearest clump of reeds, pulling the driftwood and Millie along with him. The journey was long and arduous. The wind and rain buffeted them relentlessly, and the waves threatened to pull them under. But Freddy kept swimming, driven by a determination he didn't know he possessed. He focused on Millie's frightened face, knowing that she was relying on him. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached the reeds. Freddy pushed the driftwood towards the tangled stems, and Millie scrambled off, collapsing onto the muddy bank, shivering and exhausted. Freddy pulled himself onto the bank beside her, gasping for breath. The storm was still raging, but they were safe, at least for now. Millie looked at Freddy, her eyes filled with gratitude. Freddy the Frog finds a friend. Freddy the Frog was, to put it kindly, a bit of a loner. He lived in a cozy, lily-pad-lined corner of Sunny Meadow Pond, a place bursting with life. Dragonflies zipped and zoomed, water striders skated across the surface, and other frogs croaked and splashed with endless energy. But Freddy preferred his own company. He wasn't necessarily unhappy, just reserved. He loved to watch the sunrise paint the water in shimmering pinks and oranges. He enjoyed catching plump, juicy flies with a flick of his incredibly long tongue. He even found a certain peace in the rhythmic lullaby of the pond, the gentle ripple of water against the reeds. But he did all of this alone. The other frogs, a boisterous bunch, often tried to include him. "Hey, Freddy, come join our splash contest," they'd yell, sending sprays of water high into the air. Or, "Freddy, want to race to the big rock?" But Freddy would usually just shake his head, muttering something about needing to practice his lily pad balancing or being busy observing a particularly interesting beetle. The truth was, Freddy wasn't very good at splashing contests. He always lost. And he was a terrible racer, slow and easily distracted by shiny pebbles. He worried that if he joined in, the other frogs would laugh at him. So he stayed on his lily pad, feeling a little pang of sadness flutter in his chest like a trapped butterfly. One day, a storm came to Sunny Meadow Pond. The sky turned a bruised purple and the wind howled, whipping the water into a frenzy. Rain lashed down, turning the pond into a swirling, chaotic mess. Freddie clung tightly to his lily pad, his big, green eyes wide with fear. He had never seen a storm this fierce. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind tore his lily pad free from its moorings. Freddie gasped as he was swept away, tumbling through the churning water. He tried to swim towards the shore, but the current was too strong. He was tossed and spun, feeling utterly helpless. Just when he thought he couldn't hold on any longer, he bumped into something soft and furry. He looked up and saw a small, brown creature clinging to a piece of driftwood. It was Millie, a field mouse who lived near the pond. Millie was terrified, her whiskers twitching nervously, her tiny paws gripping the wood with all her might. "Are you okay?" Freddie croaked, his voice barely audible above the roar of the storm. Millie squeaked in response, her eyes wide with fear. I don't like the water," she chattered, her voice trembling. "I can't swim." Freddie, despite his own fear, felt a surge of compassion. He might not be a great splash contestant, but he could swim. He had been swimming since he was a tiny tadpole. "Hold on tight," he shouted to Millie, and then, using all his strength, he began to swim towards the nearest clump of reeds, pulling the driftwood and Millie along with him. The journey was long and arduous. The wind and rain buffeted them relentlessly, and the waves threatened to pull them under. But Freddie kept swimming, driven by a determination he didn't know he possessed. He focused on Millie's frightened face, knowing that she was relying on him. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached the reeds. Freddie pushed the driftwood towards the tangled stems, and Millie scrambled off, collapsing onto the muddy bank, shivering and exhausted. Freddie pulled himself onto the bank beside her, gasping for breath. The storm was still raging, but they were safe, at least for now. Millie looked at Freddie, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she squeaked, her voice still trembling. "You saved my life." Freddie blushed, a faint green tinge appearing on his cheeks. "It was nothing," he mumbled, feeling surprisingly awkward. "No, it wasn't nothing," Millie insisted. "I was lost and scared. You were so brave." They sat in silence for a while, huddled together for warmth, watching the storm rage around them. For the first time, Freddie didn't feel alone. He felt a connection to Millie, a shared experience that had forged a bond between them. As the storm began to subside, Millie told Freddie about her life in the fields, about the tall grasses and the sweet berries she loved to eat. Freddie, in turn, told Millie about the pond, about the dragonflies and the lily pads and the quiet beauty he found in the water. He even admitted that he wasn't very good at splashing contests and that he sometimes felt lonely. The tortoise who wanted to fly. Once upon a time, nestled in a meadow brimming with dandelions and buzzing with busy bees, lived a little tortoise named Tilly. Tilly was a happy tortoise. She loved munching on juicy clover, basking in the warm sunshine, and listening to the crickets chirp their evening song. But Tilly harbored a secret wish, a wish so big and so different from the everyday life of a tortoise that she rarely dared to speak it aloud. Tilly wanted to fly. Every morning, as the sun began to paint the sky with hues of orange and pink, Tilly would watch the birds. She'd crane her neck, her little eyes sparkling with longing as swallows swooped and soared, as robins hopped from branch to branch, their red breasts puffed out with pride. She'd watch the majestic eagles circling high above, their shadows gliding silently across the meadow. Oh, how Tilly yearned to join them. Imagine, she'd whisper to the daisies she often found herself near, to feel the wind beneath her, well, beneath whatever tortoises used to fly. To see the world from above, to float among the clouds. The other tortoises in Tilly's family found her dream rather silly. Her brother, Tommy, would often chuckle, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Fly, Tilly? Tortoises don't fly. We walk, we eat, we sleep. That's what tortoises do." Her mother, a wise and gentle tortoise with a shell as smooth as river stones, would say, "Dear Tilly, it's wonderful to have dreams, but sometimes we must accept what we are. We are tortoises, grounded and steady. Our strength lies in our persistence, not in the air." Even her best friend, Hazel, a fluffy bunny with twitching nose and boundless energy, couldn't understand. "But Tilly, hopping is much more fun. You can cover so much ground and you get to feel the grass between your paws." Hazel would then demonstrate, bounding across the meadow in a blur of white fur. Tilly appreciated her family and Hazel, but their words didn't change her heart. The longing to fly burned brighter each day. She couldn't help it. It was as if a tiny, winged seed had sprouted in her heart, refusing to be quenched. So, Tilly decided she would try to find a way to fly, despite what everyone said. She started by observing the birds even more closely. She noticed how they held their wings, how they tilted their bodies, how they used the wind to their advantage. She tried flapping her front legs with all her might, but all that happened was she got a little dizzy and tumbled onto her shell. Next, she tried climbing the tallest tree in the meadow. It was an old oak, its branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled fingers. It took her a whole day to reach the first branch, her little legs aching and her shell scraping against the rough bark. From there, she tried to jump. But of course, she just landed with a thump on the soft grass below. Undeterred, Tilly decided to create wings. She collected fallen leaves, the biggest and broadest she could find. She carefully glued them to her shell with sticky sap from the pine trees. She even added some fluffy dandelion heads for extra lift. She puffed out her chest with pride, admiring her handiwork. She climbed back up the oak tree, took a deep breath, and leaped. The leaves ripped from her shell almost immediately, scattering like confetti in the wind. Tilly landed with another softer thud, covered in sap and dandelion fluff. She looked up at the sky, feeling a wave of disappointment wash over her. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe tortoises weren't meant to fly. Dejected, Tilly retreated to her favorite patch of clover, burying her head in the soft green leaves. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in breathtaking shades of purple and gold, a soft voice startled her. "Quite the contraption you had there," the voice said. Tilly looked up and saw a creature she had never seen before. It was a dragonfly, but not just any dragonfly. This one was ancient, its wings shimmering with a rainbow of colors, its eyes like polished gemstones. "Who are you?" Tilly asked, her voice barely a whisper. "They call me Zephyr," the dragonfly replied, dipping its head in a graceful bow. "I've been watching you, little tortoise. I've seen your attempts to fly." Tilly felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. "They were unsuccessful," she mumbled. Zephyr landed gently on a nearby dandelion. "Success is not always measured by reaching your destination, little one. Sometimes it's about the journey itself. You have courage, Tilly. You have determination. And you have a dream that burns bright within you. But I'm just a tortoise," Tilly said sadly. "Tortoises don't fly." Zephyr chuckled, a sound like tiny bells jingling. "My dear Tilly, everything can fly in its own way. The eagle flies with its powerful wings, the dandelion seeds fly on the wind, and even the earthworm, though it cannot leave the ground, flies through the soil, creating tunnels and enriching the land." Tilly looked at Zephyr with wide eyes. "What do you mean?" "The tortoise who wanted to fly. Once upon a time, nestled in a meadow brimming with dandelions and buzzing with busy bees, lived a little tortoise named Tilly. Tilly was a happy tortoise. She loved munching on juicy clover, basking in the warm sunshine, and listening to the crickets chirp their evening song. But Tilly harbored a secret wish, a wish so big and so different from the everyday life of a tortoise that she rarely dared to speak it aloud. Tilly wanted to fly. Every morning, as the sun began to paint the sky with hues of orange and pink, Tilly would watch the birds. She'd crane her neck, her little eyes sparkling with longing as swallows swooped and soared, as robins hopped from branch to branch, their red breasts puffed out with pride. She'd watch the majestic eagles circling high above, their shadows gliding silently across the meadow. Oh, how Tilly yearned to join them. Imagine, she'd whisper to the daisies she often found herself near, to feel the wind beneath her, well, beneath whatever tortoises used to fly. To see the world from above, to float among the clouds. The other tortoises in Tilly's family found her dream rather silly. Her brother, Tommy, would often chuckle, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "Fly, Tilly? Tortoises don't fly. We walk, we eat, we sleep. That's what tortoises do." Her mother, a wise and gentle tortoise with a shell as smooth as river stones, would say, "Dear Tilly, it's wonderful to have dreams, but sometimes we must accept what we are. We are tortoises, grounded and steady. Our strength lies in our persistence, not in the air." Even her best friend, Hazel, a fluffy bunny with twitching nose and boundless energy, couldn't understand. "But Tilly, hopping is much more fun. You can cover so much ground, and you get to feel the grass between your paws." Hazel would then demonstrate, bounding across the meadow in a blur of white fur. Tilly appreciated her family and Hazel, but their words didn't change her heart. The longing to fly burned brighter each day. She couldn't help it. It was as if a tiny, winged seed had sprouted in her heart, refusing to be quenched. So, Tilly decided she would try to find a way to fly, despite what everyone said. She started by observing the birds even more closely. She noticed how they held their wings, how they tilted their bodies, how they used the wind to their advantage. She tried flapping her front legs with all her might, but all that happened was she got a little dizzy and tumbled onto her shell. Next, she tried climbing the tallest tree in the meadow. It was an old oak, its branches reaching towards the sky like gnarled fingers. It took her a whole day to reach the first branch, her little legs aching and her shell scraping against the rough bark. From there, she tried to jump. But, of course, she just landed with a thump on the soft grass below. Undeterred, Tilly decided to create wings. She collected fallen leaves, the biggest and broadest she could find. She carefully glued them to her shell with sticky sap from the pine trees. Lucy's window to Wonderland. Lucy loved bedtime, but not because she loved going to sleep right away. Oh no, bedtime was her secret adventure time. Lucy's room had a special window, round and with a frame painted a cheerful sky blue. Most nights, when the moon was full and bright, this window wasn't just a window. It was a portal to Wonderland. You see, Lucy had found out quite by accident that when she whispered a secret wish into the window pane while holding her favorite stuffed rabbit, Barnaby, the window shimmered. The shimmer always felt warm, like sunshine on her skin, and then poof, the world outside transformed. Tonight, the moon was a silver coin hanging in the inky sky. Barnaby, with his one floppy ear and button eye, sat patiently in Lucy's lap. Tonight, Lucy whispered to Barnaby, her voice barely louder than a firefly's blink, "I wish I could visit a place where everything is made of candy." She touched the cool glass of the window, Barnaby bumping his nose against it too, and whispered, "Candy, candy, sweet and grand, take me to a candy land." The window shimmered, just like she expected. This time the shimmer was a swirl of pink, yellow, and green. Then Lucy felt a gentle tug, a tickle in her tummy, and suddenly she wasn't in her room anymore. She stood in a vibrant, breathtaking landscape. The ground wasn't grass, but a carpet of pink cotton candy that bounced softly when she stepped on it. Instead of trees, there were giant lollipops swirling with every color imaginable. The air smelled of warm caramel and peppermint. "Wow!" Lucy exclaimed, Barnaby tumbling from her lap in surprise. He quickly sat upright, his button eye wide. "This is amazing!" A river of chocolate flowed lazily by, bubbling gently. On the banks of the chocolate river, gummy bear bushes sprouted, their plump, colorful fruit glistening in the warm, sugary air. The sun was a giant jawbreaker, radiating a delicious, sweet warmth. "Welcome to the Candy Kingdom," a cheerful voice chirped. Lucy turned and saw a little creature no bigger than her thumb. He was made entirely of gingerbread with gumdrop buttons and icing hair. He hopped closer, bowing deeply. "I am Gingersnap, a humble servant of the Candy Queen. We've been expecting you, Lucy." Lucy stared. "You have?" Gingersnap nodded enthusiastically. "Oh yes, the wishing window is famous in the Candy Kingdom, but you are the first to ever make it here." He pointed with a tiny gingerbread arm towards a towering castle in the distance, built entirely of cake layers and frosting with candy cane turrets. "The Candy Queen eagerly awaits your arrival. She heard your wish and has prepared a welcome feast." Lucy's stomach rumbled. A welcome feast made of candy? This was truly a dream come true. She picked up Barnaby, who was staring wide-eyed at a gummy worm caterpillar munching on a lollipop leaf, and followed Gingersnap towards the castle. The journey was filled with delightful discoveries. They passed through a forest of licorice vines, crossed a bridge made of marshmallow squares, and even saw a family of chocolate bunnies hopping through a field of candy corn. "Everything is eatable," Gingersnap exclaimed, popping a gumdrop button off his own gingerbread coat and offering it to Lucy. Lucy cautiously took the gumdrop. It was a burst of strawberry sweetness. She giggled. This was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Finally, they reached the candy castle. It was even more magnificent up close. Giant frosted cupcakes served as steps leading up to the enormous candy cane doors. Two gingerbread guards, taller than Lucy, stood at attention, their eyes made of chocolate chips. As the doors swung open, Lucy gasped. The throne room was overflowing with candy. Mountains of jelly beans, piles of chocolate coins, and towers of peppermints filled the space. Seated on a throne made of spun sugar was the Candy Queen. She was a kind-looking woman with a dress made of rainbow sherbet and a crown of hard candies. Her smile was as warm and inviting as a freshly baked cookie. "Welcome, Lucy," the Candy Queen said, her voice as smooth as melted chocolate. "We have been awaiting your arrival." A table laden with every imaginable type of candy was brought before Lucy. There were lollipops the size of her head, chocolate fountains with marshmallows for dipping, and bowls filled with every flavor of gummy bear imaginable. Lucy tasted everything. She ate a taffy flower that tasted like sunshine, a fudge cupcake that tasted like happiness, and a peppermint stick that tingled with a cool, refreshing breeze. Barnaby, held carefully by Lucy, even got a tiny nibble of a chocolate drop. After the feast, the Candy Queen led Lucy to a special room made entirely of frosting. It was the dream room where all the candy dreams were kept. This is where we make the dreams that children all over the world have, the Candy Queen explained. She showed Lucy how they made chocolate river dreams, gingerbread house dreams, and lollipop forest dreams. As the hours passed, Lucy learned about the Candy Kingdom, its people, and its purpose. She discovered that the Candy Queen used the power of candy to spread joy and happiness throughout the world. Each sweet treat they made was infused with a little bit of magic, meant to bring a smile to someone's face. But as the Jawbreaker sun began to set, the Candy Queen's smile grew softer. "It is almost time for you to return home, Lucy," she said sadly. "The wishing window only stays open for a short time." Lucy's heart sank. She didn't want to leave. She loved the Candy Kingdom, its sugary landscape, and its kind-hearted inhabitants. "But I don't want to go," she cried. The Candy Queen gently took Lucy's hand. "You must, dear child. But remember, the Candy Kingdom will always be here, waiting for you. As long as you believe in the magic of your wishing window, you can always return." She presented Lucy with a small, heart-shaped candy made of pure sugar. "Keep this with you, Lucy. It will remind you of the Candy Kingdom and all the joy it holds." With a final hug, the Candy Queen led Lucy back to the candy cane doors. Ginger Snap stood waiting, his gingerbread face etched with a hint of sadness. "Goodbye, Lucy," he said. "It was wonderful meeting you." Lucy hugged Ginger Snap tightly, careful not to break him. Then, with Barnaby tucked securely under her arm, she stepped back through the candy cane doors. As soon as she did, the world shimmered again. The bright colors of the Candy Kingdom faded, replaced by the familiar glow of her own room. Lucy stood in front of her window, the silver moon shining brightly in the sky. The window was no longer a shimmering portal, but just a regular window again. She looked down at her hand. There, nestled in her palm, was the heart-shaped candy the Candy Queen had given her. It was a perfect replica, its sugary surface sparkling in the moonlight. Lucy smiled. The Candy Kingdom had been real. The gingerbread houses, the chocolate river, the Candy Queen, it had all been real. She crawled into bed, clutching the heart-shaped candy tightly. Barnaby snuggled close beside her. As she drifted off to sleep, Lucy whispered, "Thank you, wishing window. Thank you, Candy Kingdom." She knew she would visit Wonderland again. She would explore new lands, meet new friends, and have many more amazing adventures. All she needed was her window, Barnaby, and a secret wish. And as she slept, she dreamt of candy rivers and lollipop forests, of gingerbread men and a kind Candy Queen, all waiting for her to return to their sweet, sugary world. And she knew with all her heart that the magic of the wishing window would always guide her back. And that, more than anything, made her smile sweetly as she drifted into sleep.